Organizers say more than 7 million people rallied across the U.S. at thousands of No Kings events, protesting Donald Trump and what they view as an authoritarian turn in his second term.
This is just an extraordinary outpouring of grassroots protest. It is the third largest protest movement in the history of the United States.
Wow, really?
The third.
Wow.
Topped only first by the George Floyd Black Lives Matter demonstrations that, may have attracted in excess of 20 million people. But they were not just on one day. They were over an extended period of time.
Right, that's what I was about to say. Those were weeks, if not months, of protest.
Exactly. Right? Second, people will not know this, probably. Earth Day, 1970.
I like Earth Day.
Yeah, 20 million came out in the United States. Third, Sam,
wow,
the No Kings demonstrations in October of 2025.
Wow.
Somewhere around 7 million people coming out on a single day. Your mom, brilliant political organizer Karen Strickler, who's something of an expert on grassroots protests, said what was unique and extraordinary about the No Kings protest in October were the fact that people were coming out of their homes and standing and demonstrating on the street next to their home. She said, Next to
What's next to?
Next to. That's, I think I coined a new word.
I think so.
Yeah. She said, people in the D.C. suburb were lined up along their homes on Connecticut Avenue. Something quite extraordinary and quite amazing. Now, of course, the Trump administration and Trump himself and their allies were, even before the demonstrations took place, demonizing them, Sam, right?
Right.
They were calling them anti-American. They were saying, this is reflective of violent left-wing terrorism.
Right. They said they're all Hamas supporters.
Yes. How much violence was there on Demonstration Day?
Very little, if not none.
Virtually none. Even in big cities like New York and Portland. Portland's supposed to be a war zone, right?
Yeah.
You know how many arrests there were in Portland? None.
Zero,
as far as I can tell. Maybe one or two came out later, but essentially zero. Essentially zero in New York. Another big target. This was, and for 7 million people approximately. It is amazing how peaceful these demonstrations were. Totally contradicting, of course, the attempt of Trump and his allies to smear what ordinary citizens are doing to upholding their rights. The United States is a nation born of protest, right?
Right.
Protests against the tyrannical rule of King George in England. The right to petition your government, of free speech, the right of assembly is right there in the Constitution of the United States. This wasn't anti-American.
No, of course not. But come on, if you're buying that, you're either brainwashed or you're just trying to purposely spread that propaganda.
Let me tell you something that should alarm all of us. I recently Googled my name and email address. What came up? Dozens of data broker sites claiming to sell my personal information, phone number, address history, even the names of my relatives. This is a multi-billion-dollar industry you never signed up for. Data brokers harvest your information without consent, then sell it to marketers, scammers, and yes, even political operatives. And while they're legally obligated to remove it if you ask, they make the process so confusing and tedious that most people just give up. That's why I use Aura. Aura identifies which broker sites are selling your info. automatically requests removal on your behalf and follows up to make sure your data stays gone. But Aura goes far beyond that. It's real, all-in-one digital protection. You get alerts if your personal data is found on the dark web. Real-time fraud monitoring for your credit and banking accounts. A secure VPN, antivirus, password manager, and more. And if something goes wrong, you're backed by $5 million in identity theft insurance with U.S.-based fraud support available 24/7. And here's the most important part. Aura offers more features than any other service at its price. So while companies like TransUnion lose control of your data, Aura helps you take it back. Try Aura free for 14 days. Aura.com/Allan Lichtman. That's enough time for Aura to start scrubbing your personal info off these broker sites without you lifting a finger. I'm not leaving myself vulnerable, and you shouldn't either. The demonstrators themselves were very much aware of this charge, and the press reported a lot of, statements by the protesters explaining why they were there, why are they doing this, ordinary people, everyday Americans. Right? And they all said they're there to uphold American values,
of course,
to uphold our democracy,
of course,
to uphold our rights of speech and assembly.
Of course.
Their statements were incredibly pro-American.
Of course.
Nothing anti-American. And
No.
as I said, protests are part of the great tradition of America. It was protests in the 1960s that led to the two landmark pieces of civil rights legislation that have expanded the rights of millions of Americans, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Demonstrations contributed to the end of the horrific war in Vietnam, or at least the substantial drawing down of America's involvement. Demonstrations led to advances in the rights of women, the rights of Native Americans. Nothing could be more pro-American than ordinary citizens peacefully exercising their rights of assembly, speech, and petitioning their government.
But I have to ask you, you cited some very good concrete examples of things that happen after protests. Do you foresee, or what do you foresee happening after these No Kings protests? I worry that as great as they were, I don't see this administration or anything concrete happening.
Sam,
yes,
I hate to be cynical, but I think you're right. The post-demonstration reactions are just as reprehensible, right?
Right.
As the attacks on the demonstrations before they took place. What did Donald Trump post? Some AI snowflake of planes dropping excrement on the demonstrators?
Yes, he posted that.
I mean, that is so... I'm pretty good with words, but I'm at a loss for words to describe that.
Seriously.
How horrific, how anti-American could that possibly be? It's just mind-boggling.
And they posted, and then the Trump and his allies posted a bunch of memes and AI images of him with a crown. It's like, oh, so
Right.
you're reinforcing the fears that a lot of these people at these protests have.
Right. I saw one, particularly striking one with him and Melania, the king and the queen.
Right.
And he has previously compared himself to a king, right? And earlier he said, I can do anything I want, but he posted something which said, "Long live the king."
Who's your favorite king of all time?
I'm not sure I have. I'm not a big fan of kings, I have to say.
You don't have to have an answer.
Maybe a queen. Queen Elizabeth II, was pretty darn good for a monarch.
Okay.
And her dad was pretty good as well during World War II.
George?
Yes. So it's a couple of a good king and a good queen there.
Gotcha. That's it?
No.
Oh, keep going.
So, I don't expect anything concrete to come out of the Trump administration,
Right.
obviously. But they care. The fact that they are reacting so powerfully against it shows it's getting under their skin.
Oh, definitely.
You know, Trump believes in adulation, right? That's what he lives for. Crowds coming out and cheering him.
Right.
It definitely gets under his skin to see millions of Americans coming out in protest against what he represents and what he's doing. And that matters. That makes a difference. And I think, you know, this might make a difference for an upcoming election, making it more difficult
True.
for Donald Trump to exercise dictatorial control over the election, and maybe even helping to spark anti-Trump turnout in the election. So,
Yeah, that is true.
you know, it's not going to have something concrete like the Voting Rights Act or the Civil Rights Act. Nonetheless, I think certainly indirectly it has likely real impact.
Sort of a ripple effect into the election is what you're saying.
Yes.
Which is coming up in almost a year now.
Wow, it's hard to believe. It's, you know, seems like elections are always upon us.
Well, there's an election coming up this November. Maybe it'll have an effect on that a little bit. There are some key races going on, especially governorships, right?
There were two key governorship races, one in Virginia and one in New Jersey.
New Jersey.
Which, according to the pundits, I'm not an expert on individual races. Check the Cook political report for that. But the commentators seem to say these are competitive races. And so any little bit of impetus can make a difference in these two bellwether elections in, you know, important states.
And we'll see if Mamdani can truly pull off the win in the NYC mayor's race, too.
That's right. And, you know, this probably helps him. And I think Mamdani will win.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I think the Democrats will win in New Jersey and Virginia, but those elections are really right now, as far as those who follow them indicate, are too close to call.
All right. Anything else on this topic?
Yes. Just let me further emphasize what these millions of people are doing are in effect voting with their feet, voting for American democracy, voting for our Constitution, voting against authoritarian government. Nothing could be more pro-American than what they were doing. Thanks for watching our video. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and become a member today.